want to talk to you about today is a little bit about my journey and why I think it might be relevant to yours. So if we think about how we are doing, so I'm 60 years old. I think about on my watch, how did we do taking care of the planet? Pretty darn terrible. When we look at the wildlife population of amphibians, birds, and mammals and reptiles, it's now 40% of what it was when I was 10 years old. So, let's say if that's true, let's say for zebras, that means when I was a kid there was 10. My granddaughter that will be born in October, there'll be 4. Coral reefs, the amount of shallow water coral reefs has basically been cut in half in the last 30 years. So in half of my lifetime, we've lost the coral reefs. So the coral reefs that I got to swim on and dive on when I was married are now half as vibrant as they were at that point. And I don't have to tell you about this, that there's a lot of things between, if we talk about pollinators or climate change or pesticides, that there's just the way one of the authors of a report from International Biodiversity, IPBES, says we're running towards the edge of a cliff. I mean, that's the expert assessment. So my question was, during the time from when I was 10 years old, I was watching the Jetsons, and they had these phones that are like what you guys have right here. You can do videos, you can talk to your boss, you can get packages delivered. We are creative, we're innovative, we're able to make things happen. So why do we keep failing at this, our number one job? We would have to agree, right? Our number one job is sustaining the planet that sustains us. Like if we solve every other problem, we don't solve that, we still lose. You lie on your deathbed and you go, well, I did this, 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 and this, but the planet, oh yeah. So if we don't get this one right, we fail. So I grew up in Denver, and my dad was a petroleum engineer. And so at age 10, I started working for my dad, plotting oil and gas production data. And what that means is you have a bunch of numbers, and that's back when we had pencil and paper. And I would plot the data, and when it ran out, I would take a curve and do it to 0, extrapolate to 0. So I'm about my 4th or 5th one. I was like, Dad, they pay you for this? They all go to 0. That's the main thing. It runs out. So I didn't know extractive, I didn't know finite, but I understood that from a young age. And so, the first poem I wrote was I was 10 years old. It was about pollution. 1970, the first big Earth Day, and then what happened next was the EPA was started, and then the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, and my dad was saying, yeah, I'm talking to people at work, and I was like, cool, the adults have it under control. This is awesome. And why wouldn't they, right? If they can figure out money and banking and build cars, of course they're going to do that. So I was full of a lot of optimism. 1978, Jimmy Carter came out here, helped christen the Solar Energy Research Institute in Golden, now National Renewable Energy Lab. So I was like, hey, I could go into solar. This is how I can help. This is how I can be part of it. I went to University of Colorado, and they said, we don't actually have a solar program. You can do engineering. So that should have been my first clue right there. Maybe the adults aren't really focused on this. So I went into engineering, and I felt like I was doing everything that I could, and yet our first job was working for the Department of Defense. I'm like, whoa, no, what just happened there? Knowing that our defense budget is 10 times larger than the next 10 countries put together. So I kept trying to work at this engineering thing, and at the same time, I ended up in Longmont in 2013, right when the big flood just happened. 500-year flood, 1,000-year rain, something like that. And I was like, whoa, this is climate change. I want to be part of a sustainability group. And I reached out to the city and said, hey, do you have a sustainability group? And I got messages back saying, don't email me the word sustainability. My boss is watching. I'm like, what? And somebody else said the same thing. We had like 2 or 3 different folks that had that same experience. And so, yeah, that's what I said too. Oh. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess this is a revolution. So I started a group. I accidentally started an environmental nonprofit called Sustainable Revolution Longmont. And so, we had a ton of different ideas. We didn't know what we were going to do. So here's the deal. When you're alone, you're the crazy person. You find one person, now you're a team. So for a lot of time, I was the crazy people like, what? Stop talking about it. But you find one other person, it's like, I've been wanting to do something in Longmont. So now you're a team. So we started this team. We had so many ideas, people starting to come together and had all kinds of crazy ideas. So the only thing that we could think to do that addressed everybody was an Earth Day festival. So let's have kids and music and art and plants and stuff about oceans and bicycles. And so we didn't have any money. And the only place that we could reserve that didn't require a deposit was the Boulder County Fairgrounds. So they said, we'll pencil your name in, but you've got 6 months to come up with, I think it was like $500. So we couldn't find a high school gym or anything that would take us. So we're like, well, it's like 10 times bigger than we want, but let's just go with it. So we ended up having this Earth Day festival where we had 1,000 people showed up, the mayor, the city council members. We had 35 different, we called them youth booths. There had been a teacher at Hygiene Elementary teaching her kids Earth Day songs for 10 years. Never had a place to perform them. So we brought her. We had a climbing wall. We had Shateska and Eat Squatly Martinez from from Earth Guardians doing eco hip hop. We had a 4-year-old who had ocean music, ocean sounds, and little stuffed animals. And if you touched one, he would tell you what that animal was, what it needed, and how you could help it. Wow. And in the meantime, we started a youth group, Youth Leadership Council. I said, what do you guys want to do? Who do you want to talk to? Do you want to tell anything to the city council, the mayor? And they said, sure. So we brought them, and they started saying what they wanted for the city council and to the school board, and we started doing the same. And so this is ridiculous that I didn't know this, but that the way cities work, so somewhere previous city council had been influenced by who knows what, maybe money, for example, to stop that sustainability plan that they had gotten a grant for that was in draft mode, that they told the staff, no, don't move forward. But the only way to undo that is that people that live in that community have to come together and all ask for the same thing. So one night we had 6 of us lined up to ask them to do the sustainability plan. One talked about child health, one talked about our rivers, one talked about economic competition. I wore multiple blankets to talk to them about climate change. And on the 5th one, they said, okay, we'll do it. We're like, wait, we have one more person. But I mean, it was crazy. So here I was in my engineering world, trying to go out there and fix things, installing what I thought was energy efficient equipment. And then we're getting the reports back later that we didn't get as much savings as we thought. Because, when you do math, you just say it's negligible. What you can't really calculate, you ignore. And that was people. We just ignored people. And yet, so when we were doing these engineering fixes, the people weren't really in line with it and didn't understand it, and so the savings weren't there. But yet, when we were walking in parades, pushing compost carts and singing songs and dressing up goofy, which, engineers kind of look down on that stuff. But that's what changed. That's what had this big impact. So within 2 years, the city of Longmont, we changed the course of history. Our dorky little group that got together, they rehabilitated that sustainability plan. They hired a sustainability coordinator, and they pledged to the Ready for 100, the 100% renewables, before Denver did. And when I went to see them sign that, and as I said, this all took like less than 2 years. I wasn't even there the whole time. I left after that Earth Day thing. But some of the city council members were hugging me and saying, "You did this." Like, I didn't do anything, but I was that number 1 person. And then we got the number 2, and so on and so on. So this is what I've learned, is that most of our advice that you hear, like if anybody tells you, what can you do for climate action? It's sign up for solar, sign this petition, ride your bike more, eat more local food. And my advice is that before all that is start a team. Start a dang team. So I moved back to Denver, and I saw that in my mom's neighborhood in Congress Park, huge lawns in a freaking high mountain desert. And Denver Water's been telling us since 1970, you're in a desert here. And I know from my engineering experience, our water, per capita water use is higher than most other cities. And still people hadn't been changing out their lawns. So I was like, I want to join the green team here. So I reached out to people and they said, awesome, you should start it. And I was like, no. And so I did.
Now you know what you're going to be when you grow up.
Exactly. But as soon as I started it, I was living there at my mom's house, and it was January 9th. We had our first meeting. This is 2016. We had 14 people showed up. And, one person is a landscape designer, one person does art in alleys, one person volunteers with botanic gardens, another's a teacher, another's the pastor at a social justice church. Is like, well, you can use our place. And it was like, this is crazy to me. Why? We're all getting the same message, but we're not getting the first message, which is get together. So you want to go to a more plant-based diet? Start a team. Figure out as your team what does that mean, and what are the obstacles, and help each other. So then this ladder of engagement, you can help people with their individual decisions. Your team, you're going to feel better. You're not going to feel like crap because you're so tired, so exhausted of making all these decisions alone. And then your team can then go to the school district, to the city council, to whoever, to Sprouts, and ask for this thing, whatever it is that you want to see. So that's why I started Green Team Academy in 2018 with the goal of figuring out how can you make an impact fast. I know Elon Musk, his is like, how can we live on Mars? Mine is like, well, how can we live on Earth? Wouldn't that be cool? And so this thing of starting a team has been the number 1 most effective thing. So greenteamacademy.com, check it out. I have a podcast I do every week. We'll be on the radio tomorrow at KGNU with Beverly Grant at 3 o'clock. We're also doing an Earth Week Summit. So that was what Chris was mentioning. We have 60 partners. And this is part of that whole decolonizing. The first time I did an Earth Week Summit, I just gave thousands of dollars to Facebook to find people. And I felt pretty ill.
Yeah.
And it didn't work on a lot of levels. But this year I was like, well, let me see if I can promote. So I'm promoting Chris's event and she's promoting mine. So we have 60 people, 60 organizations from around the world that are partnering to share this message of collaboration rather than competition. So on Earth Day at 9 a.m. from 9 to 10:30, the Earth Week Summit, we have Mike Nelson, who is the weather guy, but don't call him a weatherman, he's the chief meteorologist. I already made that mistake. his wife, who's his PR person, let me know. And also Dr. Peter Tans, he's a senior climate scientist with NOAA. They wrote the world's littlest climate book, so we're going to be talking about that. Shayna Oliver is an Indigenous mom that works on air pollution with Moms Clean Air Force. She's going to be talking about what she's doing. And Sarita Parikh started a natural body products company with her niece and nephew to address their health issues. When the niece and nephew were 7 and 10 years old, they started this company together. So that's the first part. Then we have a happy hour after that. So, in our little happy hour, our networking group, we have people from Bahrain and Yemen and Switzerland and Ireland that are just like, hey, we've got some ideas. We can do something cool. So the last thing I want to tell you about is the International Climate Action Challenge. So once I started getting this idea of the team and seeing best practices and started mentoring different teams, and then bringing in my wellness coaching background, I came up with this idea of a 90-day challenge. So I wrote a book that came out as Climate Action Challenge, a proven plan for launching your eco initiative in 90 days. So we recruited 122 people from 22 countries during August last year. So Bangladesh, Zambia, Nigeria, Uganda, Colombia, Philippines, Canada, Switzerland, who all just came with a random idea. Like someone in South Africa, I want to see if I can clean up this stretch of the river. Someone in Bangladesh, it's a pandemic, I want to see if I can grow every seed that comes through my kitchen. She then went on to teach people in 11 countries how to do it in 90 days. So during this 90-day period, our top 29 teams planted 43,000 trees. They started 55 gardens and 2 urban farms. They did 86,000 voter outreach contacts, delivered 3,000 eco-friendly COVID kits, and started all these groups, like a sustainability group in Golden, one in Fountain, province-wide in Canada, Drawdown, Alberta. Somebody started September 1st with this idea. They went through this challenge, which ended November 30th. They now got picked up by an environmental nonprofit there. They have 4 people working on this Drawdown, Alberta, because somebody said, I think this is a good idea, and I think we could make it happen. And so that is my message, is that, God knows why our government, our corporations, our schools don't prioritize this. Like, it makes no sense, but they don't. And that we are actually the experts, just like you're the expert on your body. You're the expert on your community. You're the one that sees, wow, there's like an abandoned community garden at the school. And you walk past it for several years, like you have that inside information. You are the one. You are the one that we're waiting for to bring that idea forward. So the 2021 International Climate Action Challenge kicks off on August 18th. If you're interested, if you go to greenteamacademy.com, there's a link to Climate Action Challenge. You could get the book. You could do this free 5-video series to see what all is there. At climateactionchallenge.net, you can read the stories. So when we do this challenge, we have people send in their photos every week of what's going on. So our friend Jeffrey in Kenya, who sends in photos, we planted 5,000 trees last week. We're like, what? It's like, yeah, well, we just work with widows and youth, and we try and give them something to do, and I'm like, how do you get the money? He's like, we don't have money, but there's seeds, and we can grow the seeds into seedlings, and then we can talk to people. And so we're learning so much from people around the world that have these other ways of, that have this power that they bring to things, where we're thinking, well, don't you have to get approval from the city, and then don't you have to do this and this and this, and they're just like doing it. So anyhow, at climateactionchallenge.net, you can read those stories. There's a group in the Philippines. They had so much. They thought, we want to do something around waste management, because there's so much trash and plastic, and so they decided, why don't we build a solid waste recovery facility? So they asked the neighbors, can we use this bamboo lumber? Can we use this coconut lumber? And then they got a tin roof from a junk shop, and they built their own recycling center. And then they were able to then sell that to go pay for some of their other things. And as the pandemic, they also started giving Zumba classes. And an 18-year-old, she was like, I think we'll blog about urban gardening. By the end, we connected them with some partners. There's a HOA in the Philippines that had land, wanted to see food grown on it. There's a group in the Philippines that started this national food garden movement. We connected them, and then we connected her. So she signed a letter of agreement to operate an urban garden in December. So she came in September 1st, like, we want to do something with urban gardening. So, you know, when I see people standing on the sign on a corner with Fridays for Future, I just want to say, yeah, but don't end with use your voice. Like, use your hands, use your feet, use your shovel, use your cooking utensils. Like, whatever it is that you have, you're able to see these things and make them happen in a very short amount of time. So our tagline for Green Team Academy is get together, make a difference, and feel better. So, you know, most of climate or environmental education just stops with education, and you feel like crap. Like, polar bears are dying, pollinators are dying, people of color are suffering from air pollution. Like, that's terrible. Okay, bye. It's like, no! You can do something about that. Any of those things. There's a group, the Spirit of the Sun is working on an idea to grow mother patches for fungus, for mushrooms, to see if they can get the minerals, the toxins out of the ground in Commerce City. And we connected them with Denver Public Schools to work on that. So there's no problem that is, you know, Suncor is probably not going to figure it out. But people just going straight to nature, how would nature do this, are able to do it. So I invite you go to greenteamacademy.com, sign up, and jump into our Earth Week Summit. We have our Earth Month pop-up group with all of our partners like Chris and 59 others that are just in there chatting about what they're doing all through April. We have a challenge to fund our friends in Kenya to do 1,000 trees, to plant 1,000 trees on our behalf. So we're working with them. And yeah, and check out the Climate Action Challenge. We'd love to hear what your idea is. There is a fee for it, but we also have scholarship. So everyone that pays the fee creates a scholarship for someone else. So there's no obstacle. Just signed up one group from Dominica and another one from Yemen. 10 people called Green Hands from Yemen. Like, this is so cool. So anyhow, thank you so much, and enjoy your 420 and your everything about work.